Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Welcome back to the show. Did I say the word back? Yeah, it makes me think about looking back. Hey, it makes me think about my next guest, John Goulait, joining us here. Unfortunately, Kathy's not joining us today, but we're excited to have them always with us. And he's the chief researcher at Looking Back. That's the name of the company, lookingback.net, helping so many people out there find out more about their family history, their genealogy, and so on and so forth. Let me have the man of the hour say hello. Go for it, John.
Here we are on another Thursday afternoon, I guess it is.
Yeah.
And it's good to be here. We've been having some fun, and I think we're doing well. Today, I hope to continue a little bit of discussion on the DNA deal with you. There,
Absolutely.
there's some interesting points on that to get into. I think the one thing to remember, I'll give you a number to remember, and it's 600 million.
Mm.
And that's about how many points they get when they run a full DNA on a human DNA test. That's a lot of points that you can match people on and off. But and that's how they do it too. Except they don't run all those. They run on certain points for the most of them. Uh, to get a full view, it would take them a little longer to get the testing done and just be confusing the whole issue anyway. And they they being the companies that do this each write their own algorithms to how they want to do it and rate their findings. So it gets interesting there. Uh, the big thing that we try to remember on it and hopefully do is that the fact that there are, as we said last week, they use DNA for a lot more than just genetic
Mm-hmm.
genealogy and use it for forensics genealogy, as they call it, or forensic uh, research uh, to handle different things, and also for uh, medical purposes. And that's a whole other thing that gives them another thing to go, and that's where a lot of these other points they go to find things wrong. Excuse me.
Good excuse.
um, but anyway, to talk about what we talk about for normal working time for us are three different types of DNA.
Mm-hmm.
One is what they call Y and DNA, which is your paternal side, your father's side.
Mm-hmm.
And if you use that, you can go down the line, father to father to father to father to father,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a well-established line, and will give you a lot of information. The other one that is used a lot will be the maternal or matriarchal DNA, and that traces your mother's side and goes down from mother to mother to mother and mother. Now, the big difference is between the male and the female is we males keep the same name at the end of our name. But a lot of the females, as they get married, they change their name. So it's a little bit different, but you can still trace down that line and find information on those points. These were the first two types of DNA that actually came out, and I was getting my DNA done uh, for a long time without getting any matches for people that had the same, were within my family. Uh, and that family tree is, pretty big, but it just, in those days, there wasn't much there. And you found out as time went by that a lot of things changed, and especially with the mtDNA, the Y DNA, the changes were quite healthy in where they think you came from.
Mm-hmm.
And so that makes a difference. But they were good focal points if you got matches to find your matches. It just took a little long for me. because there weren't any people doing it that much. But as I started, and I'm saying there's another thing that goes along with this, and they call it haplogroups. And all of the Y and the mtDNAs have haplogroups.
Mm-hmm.
Haplogroups are basically defined, and I'll read it because I like it anyway, is a genetic population group of people
Okay.
who share a common ancestor on they call it, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote it down. I can't read my writing, but
It
anyway, on
happens. It happens. I know.
your,
Same
your
here.
male line, your father's line, or on your maternal line.
Mm-hmm.
And these haplogroups go back ages, ages and ages. And if you go and look uh, look up for haplogroups, you'll find that they have a map that shows all these haplogroups. And basically, uh, they call it the Adam and Eve
Okay.
of the haplogroup came out of Africa, and all the other
Wow.
haplogroups came out of that one.
Okay.
And as they traveled, they changed, and that's what happens now. They've got these the haplogroups involved with that. But it was like when I started, and my haplogroups were went through, and I knew that yeah, with what they knew at that time, that I was going to have some, German and some French and some of this and some of that, and basically I could take those haplogroups I was in and know that I was probably related to the guys from
Mm-hmm.
the Vikings,
Wow.
and that I have in my blood, and all that is in there, and it became interesting. But as time continued, now the latest thing I got on one of the companies I'm with, when they divided down to match me with their people and their algorithms, that the basic part of my body is primarily from Eastern Europe and Russia, as far as uh, re- relatives would go. But yet, beyond that, because we came other ways,
Mm-hmm.
I have also got that. But when you go to it, if I look at mine, I can find that I have relatives in most of Europe, especially the French in Normandy, or yeah, Normandy, and the German I have, but my German is that where that Russian and that came from. It was actually an area that was in Poland, at the
Aw.
very, very far side of what is Poland today, and almost into Russia. So it's interesting because I keep saying, well, how did that happen? I had a friend back in the early days, and he decided to get his uh, DNA done. And he was another French Canadian fella. And when he got it back, he said, I don't
Aw.
understand it. I don't have that much French. And I said, well, I'll tell you what we found out on that is it's just where these companies and how they get their algorithms to find out where you're from, based on what you have on your haplogroups, and on your, you know, those 600,000 million things that they can mark on. So it's really interesting, and in fact, people today, they still don't quite understand that. I've talked to a lot of people, and they think, well, this is where I have to be from because that's where my parents were from.
No, yeah, and it's shocking. You're not even Irish or you're not even French. It happens sometimes, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I
We
mean,
talked about that. All of us shocked at our heritage and lineage, thinking it's not what it was, what we thought it
I
was.
no, and that's it completely, which relates to the thing that Kathy loves to talk about, is the fact that
Yeah.
what we are and what we feel we are is the important part, and
Mm-hmm.
that becomes your heritage. Is may not become your genetic background as far as a family group goes, but it's your heritage, is how you were raised and where what came up through those years. I don't know. The families have changed a lot over the years, and they're not as tight, at least in the United States, as they used to be. But the old days, that if you were from such and such a group, you did and celebrated this, and you celebrated that. And I was lucky enough that I spent a lot of time in Western Pennsylvania, and there we had a plethora of different nationalities that moved in. And so we had everything you can think of. And a lot of it was, you had a lot of Eastern, I will say, religious terms. In Catholicism, you've got Roman Catholic, and then you've got your Eastern groups and that, and Greek Catholics, and etc. So they have different holidays. They do change. They have the same holidays, but they have them at different times. So uh, where I was, they used to have what we call Christmas, and then we had Little Christmas, which was the 12th day, the end of the Christmas season. And we'd always kid them about it. Yeah, you can wait till after Christmas to go shopping so you get all the sales. But it's those type of things that just things change so much. Everybody every year, supposedly on Thanksgiving, I think most people have turkey, but there's other people that don't have turkey.
Yeah. Mm.
And same difference, you still celebrate. But your ethnic foods. Cassie and I are both.
Well,
We
people
love
also do like the Christmas Eve, the seven fishes of
the
the whatever.
the
I'm
seven
Italian, but we
fishes.
don't do. Yes. What is that? That's another
The
tradition.
seven fishes. Yeah, and that's one of them too.
Uh,
I'm well aware of. And then of course you've got your other religions that do other things that are still akin to what they do. And where years ago we were raised that way, but right now the world has changed a lot different. I always look back and I keep thinking of years ago, and I'm showing my age a little bit, but there's a fellow by the name of Marshall McLuhan that wrote about
mm-hmm.
about mess the messages of I forget what the name of the book was, but basically it's the fact that we have grown closer, and this was back in the I think around the 70s, early 70s, but somewhere in that period, maybe it's been before then, but that the world is growing closer. That I always liken it this way. I think when I was growing up, and if you'd look in the early 50s, in that when we found news from overseas, it was at least a day old or maybe 2 or 3 days old before it got here. But now, in a matter of 10 seconds, you can get a news from anywhere in the world. And
Mm-hmm.
so the world is getting smaller,
Yeah.
and yet it's still got a lot of diversity in it. And I think that's the thing that we have to realize as genealogists and as people that we are different from everybody else in our own little ways. Getting back to like the DNA and mtDNA, it's good because of the fact that you can trace that male line back
Yeah.
uh, for a while, especially as you go through and do that, and it keeps you straight there. It's a little easier in the men, as I say, because we normally keep the same name, but that's all right. We have the same name, and I think I have 11 or 12 different Goulait spellings and even change of names, but they're still Goulets. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's there. And with women, it gets a little harder only because of the fact that when a woman gets married, they normally change their names. Some some uh, nationalities, I shouldn't say nationalities, but groups are a little bit different, and some of them keep all their names. A lot of Spanish people will have the family names of their mothers and that, so they get a pretty good idea where they come from. But otherwise, it's the paperwork that we have to find to make good genetic or genealogy work and to do with that. But it is good. The other genealogy uh, test that we now use, which was later in the game is called autosumo. And with autosumo, you can trace your family back. We know good to about from somewhere to 5 to 7 generations uh, with autosumo. And what that autosumo does is just take you to your
Yeah.
parents and your parents to their parents and goes down the line. So by the time you get to about your fourth
Mm-hmm.
generation, you've got, I think, 64 grandparents in there.
Yeah.
So, it grows rather uh, fastly. That's not a good word, but
I know what you mean. Yep.
exponentially out to a lot of numbers. Uh, and then, like I say, you add in the fact that they've got so many different numbers that they can get you when they put your DNA in that little tube and take it in and break it down. So it's fun, but it works well for the nowadays because we get much more answers to things because there's more people taking tests. There's more things coming down. The companies keep up with their algorithms to try to trace what's coming up. And
Mm-hmm.
most people, what these algorithms are based on is the people that take the tests and where they come up, and adds to how they change them around. Like I say, mine for a long time, I was basically in Europe, uh, uh, on Europe proper. And a lot of people, I was getting quite a few, in, especially the beginning in Britain and Ireland, and then French and German, and a little bit of the northern tier of Denmark and that.
Mm-hmm.
And mine has shifted with I still get a major part of my uh, background is in Europe between the German and the French, but I also because of that German actually going back towards the East Europe and Russian line. Uh, there's a lot more people taking it there, so I've actually uh, have my highest amount in that group when they break it down to general uh, Eastern Europe and Russia, and it's interesting because I'll get a match on my page. They say that they're a match, and
Mm-hmm.
we're related. Probably
Yeah.
a lot about like uh, uh, eighth cousins, which is pretty far back when you get to it because it has to. That's by generation
Yeah.
itself. So you don't know whether it's real or not. Probably is, but to get a trace on it that far back gets a little bit rough. And but when you hit something that sounds right, it's good. I don't know if I mentioned it a while back. Excuse me. I had a girl write me and thought she was related to me through my German side. And I said, good, oh, good, because I'm kind of blocked right now at my second great grandfather over there. I've got him, but yeah, I've got my second great grandfather, but I don't have anything beyond that. And I was hoping that, wow, that's good. But then we started to talk or write some things back and forth. And I did some looking when I saw some of the names she had, and that she also had French Canadian in her line.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we crossed paths, was on her French Canadian side. And the line from my second great grandmother, where I can trace indigenous background. And it's so it was interesting, disheartening because I'm still stuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Absolutely.
but you just keep looking, and eventually I might get lucky. And as also what's happening too, and the whole thing is uh, everything that we didn't have online. There's a lot of stuff that is online now that you can find without traveling the world. But sometimes it's short. Not all of it's come in yet. That could help that way. So you have to get help from local people at times in other areas like in Poland or in Germany or where they have an old history of time and hope they have some good church records. I mean, that's the only thing that was fun for me and made it nice and searching when I was learning more and more about my own family was at it in Canada because the French were there first and then the English, but the French were there first and the Catholic religion from the French was carried in there for a long time as the religion of the area. So that was they they kept fairly meticulous records as well as they could. And the only thing you have some of that, some of what I ran into is because we were in the developing area to the east or to the west, not all the way west, but to through Michigan and that area. And so some of the records were kept by traveling priests uh, and that, and some of their records disappeared. So you've got that, but in all, you've got a pretty good collection of records to search in the French Canadian side, especially with they had people that were doing uh, yearly books like we have people that do
Hmm.
records of like people that live in New York City and what they all do for a living or something like that. The city records, and these fellows did the church records and followed families for maybe 5, 6 generations. So you could hit pay dirt pretty good in some of those. But it is certainly an interesting thing to do, and the DNA is something that we like to work with. And if people have any questions about it, and I'm not saying I'm going to be able to answer all of them, but I may be able to help them even on a freebie here and there. I'm not going to ask for money for something that simple, but to help know what's going on, the main thing is to remember that you can't believe because your parents said they were both, well, say Italian, that they were really both Italian. Because what happens back before they may have been, from Italy, but their family may have had people that moved in there 300, 400 years ago, and that's then the name carried over. But you still got that other kind of people or DNA from another area that appears in there through these haplogroups as we talk about them, because there's a lot of traveling that went on as the world progressed from the two Adam and Eve, as they like to call whomever they were. So I love it. It's mind boggling, but it's so entertaining and uh, like I said, people that get into this can't get rid of it once they start. Most people, some people can. Some people don't want to have anything to do with it because it's work. But for me, it's work, but it's fun. So that's where we're at today. Anyhow,
Always full of a plethora of information. Thank you. How do we reach out to you for a consultation?
well, there's a couple ways you can get us. You can always call us at area code 804 445 9681, and you'll get looking back. If we're not there, the phone will answer. We'll get your message and we'll get back to you. I always say within 24 hours, anytime, because we don't travel a lot anymore. And if we are, I check mail, check phone anyway. Also, you can get us via email. My name with the first initial J, Goulait at lookingback.net. My wife is K, Goulait at lookingback.net.
Perfect.
Also, you can go online and go to www.lookingback.net, and you'll find our page there, and there's a place there for you to send us a note, and we'll get back to you that way also. So
Hmm.
we can help you either way, and we're always looking for people that want to learn more too. So
Thank you so much. Lookingback.net. Kathy, send her our best. Tell her hello, and we'll see her soon. But thank you for helping so many of us out with this. We appreciate it, John. Have a
I
great day.
appreciate
And everyone else, the same. We'll be back with more. Don't go anywhere. Exciting work here at the Goulets. And maybe you'll discover that you're not Italian, that you're not Irish. But you're right. What Kathy says, what matters is in your heart.
it is.
Lookingback.net. But it's cool to find out the truth. All right. Bye.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.